Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to the beginning of a brand new Bible study series. I am so excited. This is by popular request, by the way. I've had a lot of people wanting me to talk about the story of Samson, and I am very excited to do that with you guys today. Samson is a fascinating character in the Bible, and he takes up a couple of chapters in the book of Judges, which is where I want you guys to turn today. If you have a Bible, and I hope you do, go ahead and open up to the book of Judges. That is in the Old Testament. Go ahead and open up to the book of Judges and go to Judges 13. We're going to start in Judges 13 today. Before we get too far into it, while y'all are turning to that page in the Bible, I would like to welcome all of you who are new. If you are brand new to my channel or to my Bible study series, welcome. Every Sunday, I do a Bible study series with you guys of my own creation. We read through some of the Bible. I get to share my faith with you, and it's just an all-around pretty good time, and I hope you take something meaningful from it. If you've watched these before, I hope you get something great out of this one. I'm going to be putting a lot of my time and energy into making these, so please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. We'll be happy to hear from you. So let's go ahead and get started with kind of an introduction to who Samson is and what the book of Judges is. You can basically sum up the book of Judges as a cycle. The Israelites at this point in their history have made it to the promised land. They have no king. They have no real government. They are a theocracy. They follow the word of God on occasion, which comes into how the book of Judges works. Essentially what would happen is the Israelites would start to get very enthralled and enamored with the livelihood of the pagans around them. They start worshiping false gods. They start forgetting God's commandments. They start doing evil in the eyes of the Lord. And then what happens is the Lord turns his back on them, and that allows calamity to befall them. They either get caught up in disease, they get overrun by enemy forces, they get conquered by the Philistines or the Amalekites or all these other neighbors that they have. And then the Israelites suffer for a certain period of time until they start calling for God's aid again, and then God comes back and saves them through one of his judges. And these judges are basically people that God has anointed to be his representatives and his speakers who stand above the Israelites. They stand over the Israelites. They help the Israelites go forward. When the judges die, the Israelites are really sad, and they continue to follow God's commandments until they fall away again, rinse and repeat. You know, this is kind of what you can see in the book of Judges. In fact, I heard a pastor one time say that if history repeats itself, we right now are living in the time of the judges, because you can just see it happen where we have these revivals where everyone's coming to God and we're living with God for a while, then all of a sudden we fall away and allow bad things to happen, bad stuff hits us, and then we come back to God, we ask for God to save us again, and then we repeat this cycle again and again and again. And that's not a bad representation for where we are, you know, like I feel like that is something that we struggle with, staying true to God. But we're going to be talking about one of the judges, one of the most popular judges in the book of Judges, Samson. Now, how would you describe Samson? If you don't know who the guy is, I will try to describe him in the best way I can, and it's not a flattering description. Many people think of Samson and they think of his strength. That's what a lot of people think of. Samson was the strongest man in the world. He was so strong he could kill a lion with his bare hands. He could kill 100 men with nothing but the jawbone of a donkey. This guy was incredibly strong. That's not how I would first think of Samson. That's not my first thought when it comes to Samson. When I first think of Samson, I think of this description. It's a description that my pastor gave him. He is essentially a child in an adult body. A child in an adult body. And I'm going to tell you guys the truth. There's nothing more scary than a child in an adult body. And we're going to see why. We're going to talk all about Samson today. We're going to be in Judges 13 and 14 today. Really excited to get started. So let's not waste any more time. We've had enough preamble. Go ahead and open up to Judges 13, and we're going to start reading in verse 1. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Let's pause right there. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Again! This is not an uncommon thing at this point. See what I said before? Again, they did this. Again. If I were God at this point, I'd be a little fed up. But God is patient, man. I tell you what, that is crazy. So, continuing. Verse 2. A certain man of Zorah, named Manoah, from the clan of the Danites, had a wife who was childless, unable to give birth. Verse 3, the angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, you are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son. Verse 4, now see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean. You will become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is to be a Nazarite, dedicated to God from the womb. He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines. All right, let's pause there. Let's talk about what he just said. Your son is to be a Nazarite. What does that mean? What is a Nazarite? A Nazarite is a person who from the time of their birth has been promised to God. And this isn't just a simple, oh, okay, I promise that. No, it is a vow. It's a dedication that cannot be broken. They are not allowed to touch dead meat or dead things. They cannot touch dead humans, dead animals, dead anything. They can't drink wine. They can't cut their hair. And there are various other rituals that must be maintained for the Nazarite to maintain their vow. But in return, God gives them his blessing. And the Nazarite here, Samson, is going to be blessed because he's going to take the lead in driving out the Philistines. Now, we're going to leave chapter 13 there because then after that, it's just the wife and husband wanting to verify all that's happened to them. This is them wanting to verify all that's happened. But it does come true. Samson's mother refrains from drinking wine and interacting with dead things, and Samson comes into the world, and we can leave it there. Now, we'll skip ahead to just before chapter 14. We're going to be in chapter 13, verse 24. Where it says here, the woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahaneh Dan between Zorah and Estiol. Now, let me explain why that's important. Where Samson's tribe is located, it is a barren area. It is a large area that is close to the enemies of Israel. They are a kind of a warrior group. So Samson, seeing all these warriors and fighting, probably had the Lord stirring in him to become a fighter himself. And you'll see this come out when we get into later chapters of Samson. But I think it's important to understand the circumstances of Samson's birth. We need to understand why it is so important that Samson was brought into the world this way. Samson was not a normal birth. He was chosen before he was born to be special. An angel straight up came to his mother and said, your son is going to be a Nazarite. He's going to take the lead in getting your people to safety. Imagine if an angel came to your parents and told them, your child is going to be special, you need to treat him this way. Wouldn't that be something? But I think that may have also been a double-edged sword. I genuinely think this. I think that may have been a bit of a double-edged sword. By telling Samson he's special, it made him a bit spoiled. Maybe it's a good thing that God doesn't tell our parents how special we're going to be. Maybe it's a good thing that we are special because God made us and God has a plan for us. See, that's something to keep in mind, guys, and I want you to take note of this. God has a plan for you before you're even born. Before you're born, God has a plan for you. Now, in Samson's case, the angel came and told the mother and father exactly what Samson was going to do. But God doesn't tell us. God doesn't tell us ahead of time, but we need to trust that God has a plan for us. He's got something special in mind for you. The problem I see is that God told Samson's parents, and I think they spoiled the boy a bit. And you're going to see that come out in the next chapter. I think they spoiled Samson a little bit, and that's what let him be a child in an adult body. And we're going to take a look at that. Let's go ahead and open up to Judges 14. Judges 14, right after the last one we just read. Verse 1. Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. I love the way he says that. Just get her for me. Not even, I'd like to marry her. Or, would it be okay if I married her? Or, I'd like to get to know her. Or, would you like to meet her? Or, no, just get her for me. Again, spoiled. Spoiled. Have you ever seen a child in a toy store? Mom, I want this, I want that, I want this, give it for me. And if they say no, oh, God help you if they say no, the screaming starts. The screaming starts. I've seen it. I worked in Longhorns for a while. Watching a child throw a tantrum is impressive. But they're kids. Children throw tantrums. Children are very selfish creatures. Anyone who wants to say that human beings are not sinful by nature, watch a 2-year-old. 2-year-olds are greedy, selfish, conceited. Oh, they can have their cute moments, but trust me, they're sinful. And Samson is a 2-year-old in an adult body. Watch this. Verse 3, his father and mother replied, "Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistine to get a wife?" But Samson said to his father, "Get her for me. She's the right one for me." Again, get her for me. She's the right one for me. Here's the funny thing about that. They have the right to say no. Samson's parents can say no to this. They can deny him. Because marriage at this point in time is not just a simple matter of I love you, let's get together. There was a tradition involved. Families had to be involved in this. And this is unbiblical as well. According to the word of God, you must not wed those outside of the tribe of Israel because, and there's a reason for this, because it's going to create problems for your lineage down the road. It's going to create issues down the road. This is unbiblical. This is something that they do not want to do. This is something they want to avoid. And the father's saying, aren't there better people? Aren't there people amongst your tribe? Aren't there people who because here's the thing. Now you might argue, well, what about situations like Ruth or those kind of situations where Ruth is a different case, and we're going to do a whole study on Ruth in the future. Ruth is awesome. I do want to talk about her. But in this case, this is a Philistine woman from a Philistine family who has no interest in integrating with the Israelites. Samson just thinks she's hot and wants to marry her, and God help you if you don't let him have her. Get her for me. She's the right one for me. Now, notice what it says after that in verse 4. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. I want to take note of that little bit in parentheses. I think that's very important. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. God will use our sinful desires for his gain, but that doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean they're good. Samson's behavior is not something to praise, but God is using it for what he plans. Some people will hear that and say, oh, well, I can just keep on sinning and God will use it for what he wants. No, that's not what I said. I'm saying that God is using our sinful desires for his gain. A person can have no faith in God, no belief in God, and live a sinful, distasteful life, and God is still using them and their behavior to further his plans. So even a person who does not believe God exists, God is still using them for what he wants. They just may not reap the benefit of it. And you'll see that in just a second. Samson doesn't reap any benefits here. Next verse. Verse 5. Watch this one, guys. But Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring towards them. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. There are two things that I want to take from this. Two things. So we have a scene where Samson rushes forward, sees a lion, it attacks, he rips it apart with his bare hands. That's how strong Samson is. Think of the size and power of a lion. And Samson tore it apart with his bare hands. This man is Herculean strength. He is a monster in human form. But he didn't tell his parents about it. You know, if I was as strong as Samson, and I was walking down the road, and a lion that escaped from the zoo jumped out at me, and I took it down with my bare hands, the first thing I'm doing is calling mom and dad. Mom, dad, you won't believe this. But Samson didn't tell him. Why? Why does he hide it? The Bible doesn't tell us, but I have a theory. When we live our life in a manner that isn't godly, and yet we know about God, we start to see a lot of what we do as shameful and worth concealing. Think about it. If you actually see, Samson knows about how important he is. He knows he's a Nazarite. He knows it. He knows that he's been promised to God from the time of his birth. He knows it. His parents have readily informed him. He's special. So he knows God's plans for him. He's aware of God and God's purpose for him. So that means when he does wrong, he recognizes, I probably did wrong here. Now, do you think that killing the lion was wrong? Maybe not. Maybe not necessarily. But at the same time, and maybe I shouldn't tell mom and dad. Maybe this is something I keep to myself. Why? Could it be wrong? I don't know, but I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to risk getting in trouble. I'm going to stay secretive about it. And then, read on, he meets her, talks to her, and likes her. Do you know what that means? Samson looked at this woman from afar, hasn't said one word to her, goes to his parents and says, get her for me as my wife, finally talks to her and says, okay, yeah, I like her. Really? That is so childish. Imagine that. A child sees a video game they really want. I want this game. Dad looks at it. That's pretty pricey, son. Have you even heard of this game? No, but I want it. Okay, we'll get it for you. Gets it, plays it. Okay, Dad, I like this game. I like this game. Imagine if he didn't like it. He said, I don't like this game. This is awful. Wasted a lot of money there for what you thought you might like. Do you see what I mean when I say that Samson is childish? He is a child in an adult body, and it's not going to get any better. Let's keep going. Verse 8. Oh, brace yourselves. Sometime later, when he went back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass, and in it he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. Now, you might think that's weird. That's not too weird. There are cases where bees will build nests or hives within dead bodies or dead animals because it takes a while for them to decompose, and you can make use of the nutrients inside the body for a time being. But no, this gets gross. Listen, he scooped out the honey with his hands and ate it as he went along. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they too ate it, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Good Lord. If that didn't turn your stomach a little. To recap, he walked by the dead lion that he'd killed just the other day. A beehive has built its nest in the lion's carcass. He scoops out some of the honey to eat and shares it with his parents. Now, leaving aside the obvious gross factor here, leaving that aside for a moment, do you realize what he just did? He's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to mess with dead things, and yet he puts his hand in a dead lion's body to eat honey from it. And not only does he do this, he shares it with his parents. He is not only sinning, he is sharing in sin. He is engaging and involving other peoples in his sin. In fact, there's a verse in the Bible that Jesus mentions. It's very important. Turn to, if you would, Luke 17. I think this is a very important verse. I've got it over here. Here we are, Luke 17, verses 1 through 3. Jesus said to his disciples, things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone through whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. So watch yourselves. Woe to those who cause others to stumble. Woe to those who cause others to stumble. Look, it's one thing to sin, okay? We're going to sin, we're going to mess up, that's just going to happen, it's human nature. But when you drag other people into your sin, oh, that's even worse. That's even worse. It's forgivable. God will still forgive it, but you have dragged someone else into your sin. Just, gosh. You know what? I don't like Samson. I'm not a fan of this guy right now. He is an absolute awful person. Absolutely awful. But guess what, guys? It gets worse. We're going into verse 10, and Samson's about to show his butt. Verse 10. Now his father went down to see the woman, and there Samson held a feast as was customary for young men. When the people saw him, they chose 30 men to be his companions. Verse 12. Let me tell you a riddle, Samson said to them. If you can give me the answer within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. Well, tell us your riddle, they said. Let's hear it. He replied, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. For 3 days, they could not give the answer. So first of all, let's take a moment to respect the fact that not only did he eat something that was unclean for him, it was sinful, he shared it with his parents, even worse, and now he's telling a joke about it. Let's look at that riddle again. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. He's joking about the lion and the honey. Hate to spoil that for you, but that's what the riddle is all about. He's talking about the honey and the lion that he ate. He's telling a joke about it. He is making his sinful action into a jest to take something from other people. Because he knows that none of them, other than him, and will get that joke. He knows that only he would understand the context of it. He is taking advantage of his sinful action to not only drag other people into sin, but to steal from others because he knows they'll never get the joke. This is, in a word, sick. Samson is a sick person. But you know what? That's a child in an adult's body. How depraved do you have to be to sin and laugh about it? That's what I see children do. When I was a teacher, I would watch kids do really stupid, inappropriate things, and then when I call them out on it, they laugh when I call them out. They laugh. They think it's a joke. They think it's funny. They don't think it's a big deal. A child in an adult's body. And you know people like this. You know that's the scariest thing about Samson. He's not alone. We know people like this today. Imagine giving that person authority over a family, a job position, maybe even a state as a mayor or a country as a president or king. Imagine a person like Samson taking care of a family. Imagine a person like Samson in your own day-to-day life. If you think hard about the people you work with, you might be able to identify them. You might actually say, yeah, I know someone like that. But you know what's even scarier? You might look at yourself and say, how like Samson am I? And that is what I want to leave with you guys today. We're not done. We got a little bit more to go. But I want you guys to really meditate on this. Are you anything like Samson? And if not, do you know anyone like Samson? Oh, Samson's strong, and that's to be admired, but his strength isn't his own. It comes from the Lord. But Samson himself is a depraved, awful individual. Absolutely awful. We're almost done, though, guys. Let's finish up the chapter. Verse 15. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to steal our property? Then Samson's wife threw herself onto him, sobbing, you hate me, you don't really love me, you've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. I haven't even explained it to my father or mother, he replied. Why should I explain it to you? She cried the whole 7 days of the feast, so on the seventh day he finally told her because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before sunset on the seventh day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? And Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home, and Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. Wow, there's a lot to go into. But here we get a real idea of what kind of people are involved in this story. Sorry. We have the Philistines. They are angry and sneaky. They want to manipulate Samson's fiancée so that they don't lose a bet that they agreed to. Hey, here's the thing. They could have backed out of this bet. But they agreed to it. They agreed, okay, we're going to go along with this bet. We're going to play this bet. And when they realize they can't win, they threaten Samson's wife and her family. If you don't tell us the answer to the riddle, we will burn you and your father's land. So they're not nice people. Then we have the fiancé, who's a cunning and manipulative woman who will use her tears to get Samson to do what she wants. Don't you think it would have been interesting if she went to Samson and said, Samson, honey, listen, I know that it's your riddle, but they are now threatening me and my father if you don't tell them the answer. They are now threatening me and my father. Couldn't Samson have brought them forward and said, hey, hold on, you're threatening my wife to get the answer? Not only is that cheating, that's wrong, and you know it. But no, she doesn't do that. She cries and manipulates him, saying, oh, you don't love me. You don't really love me. If you loved me, you'd tell me the answer. Saying, I didn't even tell my parents. Why would I tell? Oh, you don't really love me. Fine, I'll tell you. Thank you. Not a great woman either. Not exactly a great woman herself. Not an honest woman. Very manipulative. And then Samson, of course, the star of the hour, a child who not only caves into her tears, but also insults his own wife, referring to her as a heifer, a cow. And then, to add on to that, he storms off and throws a tantrum. Not just any tantrum. He goes to a Philistine village, kills 30 men, takes their clothes, and gives them to the Philistines to settle the bet. And then, oh no, we're not done, then goes home to pout at his father's house, in the middle of the wedding, because this was on the next to the last day. He goes home to pout at his father's house while his wife is given to someone else, because it's very bad if the husband or wife walks out of the wedding. So to save face, she had to be given to another man. There are no good people here. The Philistines are wicked and underhanded. Samson's wife is a cunning and shrewd manipulator, and Samson himself is a tantrum-throwing, pouting child. But we are getting a sense of who these people are. There are quite a lot of them out there, and there are a few things more dangerous. You know them. You've probably seen them. People who are manipulative, people who throw tantrums when they don't get their way, people who are destructive. They're out there. Now you might be saying, Raven, this is a very uplifting Bible study. This doesn't make me feel good. Not all Bible studies are meant to make you feel good. Some are meant to make you think. And what I want you to think about today is this. What I want you to take home is this. Some people out there, yourself included maybe, are children in adult bodies. You behave like a child. But behaving like a child is no way to live as an adult. Now, I'm not saying you can't indulge in childish hobbies, like watching cartoons, playing games. That's not what I'm saying. Behaving like a child means that you have the mannerisms of a child. You have the attitude of a child. You demand things though you haven't earned them. You throw tantrums when you don't get your way. You commit sin, joke about it, and engage others in it. These are childish actions. Are you like Samson? If you're not like Samson, are you like Samson's parents? Are you enabling a sinner? Samson's parents could have said no. They could have said, no, Samson, you're not getting this Philistine woman. We forbid it. Are you enabling another sinner? Are you allowing someone who is behaving in this way to continue doing what they're doing? Are you like Samson's neighbors, the Philistines, manipulative and cunning, willing to take advantage of other people or threaten people to get your way? Or are you like Samson's soon-to-be wife, a woman who is willing to manipulate and be cunning and use tears to get a man to do what she wants, rather than be honest and direct with him? There are no good people here. There are a lot of problems here. The only genuinely good people I can think of are Samson's parents, and even they are guilty of enabling Samson to continue living in this very shameful lifestyle. But what I want you to be left with is this: God is always forgiving. Whether you are like Samson, his parents, the fiancé, or the Philistines, God can forgive. God is here to forgive and lead you down the straight and narrow. And as we go further into Samson's story, because we're not done, we got further to go with Samson. We probably got another 2 or 3 days on Samson. We're going to see how God continues to use Samson, how God is able to use someone even like him to accomplish his work. I look forward to it. I'm very excited for the next meeting, and I will see you in that next video. Take care.